Hi, everybody. My name is John Carver. Welcome back to That's Life with John Carver. My guest today is Richard Fox. Richard is a speaker, an author, and a gentleman who is full of information that is going to help you. So thank you for being on the show today.
John,
I appreciate it a lot.
thank you for inviting me.
No
I
problem.
appreciate that very much.
The theme today is on cause and effect, because I know I've struggled with this issue, and I know you may have struggled with the issue that we don't know why certain things happen in our lives. So today I've invited Richard to come in and share some concepts and some insights on exactly that, what cause and effect is and how it impacts your life. So welcome, Richard.
Thank you. Thank you. And greetings to all of you. The law of cause and effect has been deemed the law of laws by certain philosophers. And there are universal laws in this world. There are man's laws and universal laws. The universal laws are set up by God. They cannot be manipulated, and the results of the universal laws are empirical. They are just, they are fine. What is cause and effect? The best way to start with this is what was the first cause and what was the first effect. If we know that every effect must have a first cause, we go to the Bible, John 1:1, we know that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And so God created everything, and everything that was created was perfect by intention, okay? So we know that the effect of every cause must match the cause, all right? So when you start say, well, what does that mean? It's not just thinking. We think in images, okay? But we respond in words. When we start to do things, we start to write it out. We think in words, we talk in words. John and I are talking in words. I'm talking to you using words. And the words have the meanings that we give to them. But they start to cause feelings, and those feelings tend to respond in more of a physical reaction. If I was to use, for example, holding a nice little soft puppy. How many of you can hold a puppy in your hands right now? And he's squirming and he's soft and he's starting to make that little noise that little puppies do, and you can hold it to your face and he's starting to lick you. And it's the most wonderful thing. Now, if all of a sudden somebody walks in and drops a plate of plates and there's a big crashing noise, you're going to react in a different way. It's by whatever noises that are effects are around you. So with all of those things that I just shared, whether it be the puppy or the noise of the crashing plates, you had an image in your mind of what I was talking about. Now that image created a reaction from you, whether it was the endearing thought of holding a puppy or the reaction to plates clattering on the floor. Everything that happens had a precedent cause. And in your world, if you're not happy with the way things are going, think about what you are thinking about and what you're doing. What I try to do when I talk to people is make them aware of what they're really thinking and doing and why. Many of you are familiar with something we call the golden rule. It says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Notice it's not a thinking thing, but it's an active thing. Thinking is great, and thoughts are indeed things, but they cause an action, and you need to start doing. So when we say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, now think about the effect that you want. How do you want people to treat you? You want them to treat you nasty, or do you want them to be kind and loving? Well, if that's how you want the result to be, then you must, at first, treat them that way. So treat them with love, treat them with kindness. Now, where does that come from? Well, how do you treat yourself? And I am a firm believer that we first have to have something in order to give it. If John asked me for 2 apples, and I didn't have any apples, I couldn't give them to him. But if I wanted to give John love and respect, then I have to first have those things about myself. I have to love myself, and I have to respect myself. And when you can start doing that, and you love yourself and respect yourself, if I love John and I respect John, how would I treat John? I would treat him with love and kindness and respect. So I challenge you to be aware of how you talk about yourself. A lot of us have what we call negative self-talk. We think sometimes that we're not worthy. We say, oh, we do something, oh, that was stupid, or mom didn't like me, and people don't like me, or I'm poor, or I'm of ill health. Why would you think those things? Because if that's what you're going out and you're treating the world with, that's what you're going to get back. This is not what is commonly some people think of as the law of attraction. It is a cause and it is an effect. If I put my hand on a hot burner, I'm going to burn my hand. That's cause and effect. I touch the burn, and the effect is that I burned my hand. If I treat people with love, it's going to come back to me. It might not come back to me from the person to whom I give it, but we know through biblical precept that whatever we give out must come back to you. Not too long ago, there was a wonderful series of commercials that were done by an insurance company, where somebody watches somebody do a very kind gesture towards somebody, opening a door, picking up a doll for a child. Somebody witnesses that. And that inspires them to go and do something nice for somebody else. And it goes around, and it goes around, and it goes around, and eventually it will come back to you. Because what you give out does not go in a linear way, but it goes out in every direction, the way that the light leaves the sun. And it goes to everybody. So when we talk about cause and effect, some people hear that, but they don't necessarily understand the principles of it. And once we understand the principles of something, then we can use them to our advantage. Take, for example, electricity. Electricity's been around since God created the universe. But it's only been in the last couple thousand years that we've started to understand the principles of electricity. And once we understand the principles of something like electricity, we can start to use it for our benefit. And so this is how the law of cause and effect works. Once you understand the principles that you are the source, you are the cause of what goes on around you, as well as the recipient of what you're doing. So if you don't like the way things are going on around you, try to be aware of what you're really thinking and what you're doing.
Let me pause you there a minute. You talked about earlier the images that we have in our minds. And years ago, I heard an instructor teach that your attitude can dramatically change based on the images that you keep in your mind all the time, or replacing certain images like you were alluding to earlier. Can you talk for a few minutes about the importance of the images that you design in your own life, that you imprint on your own brain,
Sure.
How it can dramatically change not only how you're thinking, but the results of some of your actions, and potentially those actions will change as a result of the images, which then changes the effect or the result of what you're trying to accomplish.
Of course, of course. Something that I was writing, I was talking with some people recently, and we've come up with something called pathological prejudices. Now, we're all raised by somebody, hopefully mom and dad, and it was in a loving environment, and you were told by them, by their best intentions with what they knew, here's how we think and do things in this family. And religions are that same way. If you attend a Catholic church or a Jewish congregation or whatever it might be, you have your practices. Finally, and through all of that, you develop an awareness of how you view yourself. Now, I started years ago, about 15 years ago, I was contracted to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to the renovation of the Washington, D.C. public school system. And I would start to talk, as a contractor, I would talk to my crews and get them motivated. But teachers are watching me and said, could you talk to my class the same way you talk to your crews? And so I did, and I got them to be aware of who they are. I'd say, how do you identify yourself? And took out a piece of paper and you write, I am across the top. And then you start to, how do you identify yourself? You're not your name. Your name is purely your name. But how do you identify yourself? I am tall, short, skinny, fat. I'm healthy, I'm ill, I'm broke, I'm wealthy. And I found a lot of students identify themselves that I live in the poorer side of town, I don't have money, and that is the concept they have of themselves. That concept, that image that they have in their imagination causes them to act that way. Now, if you could change the image you have of yourself, if you could look in the mirror and see the perfection in you that God created, then you'd say, you know what? I'm not the world around me. I am not what other people say unless I own that. You get to decide who you are. And when you do, when you think that I am worthy, that I have something to contribute, if you think of yourself as an instrument of God's world, you're here to do a specific thing, not what somebody else told you to do. But what is it that you feel inside you that you want to do? All right? When you start to do that, you will change your attitude about yourself. In the same way that you would want to be treated well, you will treat others the same way. When you want to be treated in the image that you've created, and you're going to change your attitude, because you're going to love yourself a little more, you're going to have more self-respect, and then that's going to manifest itself in a concrete way in the rest of the world. And it's going to come back to you. And the better it gets, the better it gets. So it's very important that you be aware of the thoughts that are going on inside you. We think in images, but have you ever thought about the fact that you think in images? This is where we're talking about cause and effect and the principles of cause and effect. It's something that applies to every one of us. And it's a power that if we don't use, we will float through life and bounce back and forth by what people say we are and what we are worthy of. Take control of that. Picture in your mind how you want to be. Picture yourself as prosperous and healthy and happy and worth loving. And that's going to change your attitude about yourself. And thus that's going to change the person that the rest of the world sees and the effects that you're going to get from the rest of the world.
So am I hearing you say that we have the power to change the images in our own mind, but there's a kind of like a PS to that, because most of us behave, with our emotions, whether it's anger or fear or anxiety or hatred or love. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes the emotions overwhelm the intellect. I'd say probably well over half of us have that issue, I'll use the word issue, or problem or challenge. Mm-hmm. So how can you recommend to the viewers, if you're an emotional person and this cause and effect concept is genuine, and it is, mm-hmm. how do you turn down that emotion button and turn up that intellect button to design your life in a way that is not so emotional, and that you don't ride the waves of those emotions, because those emotions can literally stop you in your tracks?
You're absolutely right. There are a lot of people that govern their lives by emotions. I was watching recently, excuse me, what I thought was one of the most sad television shows I've ever seen. It was called Beyond Scared Straight. And you have these 12 and 14-year-old children who are candidates to go to jail because they have anger management issues. You are in control of your emotions. Yes, it's very nice when we see something and we feel good about it. But I believe that being offended is a choice. If John were to say something unkind to me, I was, all right. If he said that I was ugly and stupid, that's John's opinion. I don't have to agree with that. And I can either react to it, or I can be thoughtful in my response and say, well, John, I appreciate your opinion. And as Abraham Lincoln said about his opponent who talked him down one time, he said, well, my opponent is a quite learned man and he might be very right. You diffuse the argument.
Right.
I respect John's opinion. I don't have to agree with it. So if somebody says something that hurts you, if you're driving down the road and somebody gives you the New Jersey hand wave, which only uses 1 out of 5 fingers, that's all they have. What do you have? You have so much more inside you when you start to realize how worthy you are, how divine you are, there's a love inside you, you don't want to react or respond in kind. Take the lead. As we talked about the golden rule, do to them what you want to have them do to you. Don't give him your power. All right? Give your love to him and watch what that does.
So what happens when you have individuals that were raised in an environment, whether it's violent or racist, or they come from a very negative household where the parents, you're not going to amount to anything. And I know people in my own family, not in the household, but in the family, that they were raised with a concept that they're not going to amount to anything at all. And for decades, these people have lived a life less than their best because they've based the images of, let's say, a parent has been imprinted on the child. Now the child is older and still having these images of what the father said about the child some 70 years later, and they're still having a lifestyle based on the opinion of a person that died 40 years ago. So how can people overcome these images or these imprints that have been placed on their lives as a result of other people's opinions?
You just gave what I think is the best definition of the pathological prejudices that I was talking about earlier. Yes, and they become our programming. How do you get past that when you realize that I'm on a path that's going to lead me to someplace I don't want to go? And if you're in a situation, if you're around people that are like that, if they're in the dark, turn up the light. If they don't see their value, you can give them your love. Something that was written recently is, we know that love is forgiving, because God is love and God is forgiving. But take the word forgiving and break it into two words. Love is for giving. It's not a medium of exchange. It's something that you give. And you can give it, and if they don't feel the love, they will sense it. Because love is a very strong emotion. I believe it is the strongest power in this universe. Because, again, God is a synonym for love. So you give them love, and you give them the encouragement. Don't react. Respond to them with love. Treat them the way that you want them to treat you. Treat them the way that God would want them to be treated. You're God's instrument. Whatever the prejudices, whatever went on in the past, make them aware that it's the past. Release the past. You have that ability. And there are many people around you, people like John, that will come into your world or through his articles or his TV programs that can show you how valuable you are. Become aware of that. And you don't have to be the victim anymore. Be the victor of your life by the love that is in you and around you and that you can give. And the more you give, the more you'll get back. And it's a wonderful, wonderful cycle, because the better it gets, the better it gets. The example John was talking about. If you still think in negative terms and somebody offended you 40 years ago, or dad wasn't there, or mom wasn't there, whatever it might have been, if you continue to hold on to that, you'll continue in a very negative spiral in the other direction, because that's what you're putting out there. With your mind and your images, you don't have to see yourself as that victim. See yourself the way that you want to be. And the more that you focus on the person that you want to be, the more that will expand. And you will get into the greater details, and you'll see yourself as prosperous and healthy and happy. And you'll meet people like John, and maybe you'll meet me, and you'll feel better about yourself because you chose to. It's a choice, just like being offended. Choose to love yourself. When I started doing that about 15, 20 years ago, it was very difficult for me. And one of the best pieces of advice I got was take a chair and sit in front of the mirror. If you stand in front of the mirror, you'll walk away, especially if it's tough. Sit and look at the mirror. Look in your eyes. Start to love yourself. Say, I love you. And you'll realize that you are worth loving. And that's how you can begin the process by that cause, the effects that you'll see in yourself will be a happier, lighter, and brighter person. If somebody else is in your world that is not that way, give them more love. Just give them love. Don't expect anything in return. It's not about what you're going to receive, it's about what you can give.
Now, you've written lots of stuff before, and you talked about if you want a field of corn, that you don't plant apple seeds, you plant corn. And you also said that you can't ignore what you've planted, nor should you work on harvesting other people's seeds because your seeds are what's most important to you. Can you kind of talk about that a bit more, how important it is for us to be proactive in our lives of planting the seeds that we want to harvest back, instead of planting seeds haphazardly and not really having a game plan in our lives?
Sure I can. As we said, you have complete control of your thoughts. You can't think negatively about yourself and that you're a victim and that you're not worthy and expect other people to treat you as somebody they treat you with respect and treat you as somebody who is worthy. And seeds are a wonderful, wonderful metaphor for that. You plant corn. The only thing that you can harvest if you plant corn is corn. If you plant seeds of love and kindness and health and prosperity and success, those are the only things that you're going to be able to harvest back in this world. As we said, because of cause and effect, the effects have to be in direct proportion to the cause that goes out there and the belief in the cause. You just can't pay lip service. So, I'm worthy, I love myself, it's all good, and I'm getting better and better in every day. Believe in the principles of cause and effect. Yes, and if you've planted something and all of a sudden you realize, ooh, I didn't want to plant corn, then you can remove the corn. But know that the moment that you plant a seed, whether it be a corn seed, an acorn, the world and the universe starts working on that immediately. And it only takes as long as the laws of nature require for the evolution of the growth of that seed. So we know how long it takes for a corn seed to grow. We know how long it takes for a human seed to grow inside a woman, about 180 days. We're not too sure how long it takes certain thoughts to grow and the image that you have. But know that what you plant, you must reap.
Isn't it also important, if you flip that analogy around, that it's really up to us to place ourselves mentally, emotionally, and other ways in the lives of people that can plant seeds into our lives that can change our lives in a positive way. There's a story in the scriptures about how a sower went to cast some seed, and some seed fell on some rocky soil, and some other seeds were eaten up by the birds. But there was the last example of it was some seeds fell on fertile ground, and they reaped a really good harvest. Right. So as we end our show here today, talk about how you and I and you are responsible for maintaining a heart and a mind and an attitude that is open to learning, to getting better every single day.
I can, and thank you. That's a great way to bring the show. Everything starts from within inside you. Your thoughts are inside you. How you view yourself is inside you. And so you have to look at the mind and the person that you think about of yourself. Are you planting your thoughts in a fertile, rich soil that is receptive to and nurturing to the thoughts that you have of yourself? And those thoughts, those will manifest themselves. They will continue. The effects that will come from that will be what you want. If you are in a situation where the group that you're talking to or the people that you're around, whether it be at work or at home or at school, if they're not aligned with your thinking, if they're not giving what you want, you have to respect them and separate yourself from them and go find the more fertile soil for you to live and grow in. And I believe that's how cause and effect. You understand the principles. If people don't agree with you, respect their opinions. But if the harmony is not there, then you need to love them and back yourself away until you need to take care of yourself and you feel good about the world that you're in and the people that you spend time with. It's not by accident in any stretch that I'm sitting here with John. If you get to know John, and many of you do, he is probably one of the kindest and most loving men that you'll ever meet. And it is a blessing for me to sit and talk with you. Thank you.
Appreciate you being on the show. I really do.
My pleasure.
If you want more information on Richard Fox, I'd like you to go to his website. It's the lawoflawsbook.com. Again, the lawoflawsbook.com, and you can learn much more about Richard Fox that will, I think, open your horizons a lot and teach you a lot more information that he's learned over the years that can transform your life in a dramatic way. Again, thank you for being on the show today. It's been a real treat.
It's a blessing for me too.
Thank you all for being here on our show, and we will be talking to you real soon. Thanks so much.